Hi, good afternoon, folks. Thank you for coming here today in such short notice at 1 o'clock. The reason I called for this press conference is to share with you some wonderful news that we were able to get today. And I'm joined here by my colleagues who have been working beside me for the past month on issues relating to the evacuees coming from Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and other places after these storms. So you all are aware, it's no secret, that I've been pushing hard on help for all these folks that have been displaced. With our early efforts that we did with education, we were able to change a lot of the policies here. That for now, I can say in Central Florida alone, over 2,000 students have been enrolled in public schools in 7 counties in Central Florida alone. So it shows that we knew that a lot of them were coming, and our early actions and the help with the governor got those things changed through executive order. And then we were able to also get the teachers, get them a waiver and some expediency to their certificates so they can apply for jobs and work. So that was one of our early missions in helping these folks in Puerto Rico. We've helped in numerous other ways. Plasencia and I and Santiago and others and Cortes, we've been to Puerto Rico. We've seen the devastation. We've come back even more encouraged how to help our fellow Puerto Ricans that are suffering who have been coming to the island. Coincidentally, the numbers that we've received recently, over 60,000 have reached Florida from Puerto Rico. Is estimated over 100,000 have actually come out of Puerto Rico into the whole mainland United States, and that number will continue to grow. So my early efforts have been on many fronts. It's been education and especially on job placement. So these folks that are coming here want to work. They want to be able to have a path to work. And one of the hindrances we have that makes it difficult is the licensure procedure. So we've reached out to many different entities. DBPR early on issued the waiver for the licensure fees on 50 professions. But we did not stop there. We reached out to the Department of Health and see how they can help with some of the issues that we're having, particularly on the nurses. So I'm proud to say today those early efforts have paid off. As of today, the Florida Board of Nursing issued a directive and an expedited procedure for licensure of nurses. It's happened today, and it's on their website, floridanursing.gov. It shows an expedited procedure for nurses that are licensed RNs and LPNs in Puerto Rico to come to Florida, apply for jobs in hospitals here, apply for their licensure, and get approved so they can start working immediately. And from what we understand, over 200 nurses have already applied in Central Florida alone in hospitals. So the need is great. The hospitals are hiring. The biggest hurdle we had is how can we get them licensures? So through the webpage of floridanursing.gov and the Florida Board of Nursing, they've stepped up big time. They've come up forward and they see the need, and they've specifically created a process. So that process involves, of course, the $110 fee, and I've asked the governor to potentially consider waiving the fee for the first 30 days like they've done with DBPR, just to be consistent. And we just made the ask about an hour ago, so we have not heard back from them yet, but they're looking into it. But the Board of Nursing has the live scan for criminal background checks. That's going to be required as everything, but it's a simplified process. Demonstrate that he or she has actively practiced for 2 of the 3 preceding years with no discipline as a nurse in Puerto Rico. Request the Puerto Rico Board of Nursing send Florida Board of Nursing verification on their licensure status. That was the sticking point, because obviously you can't just pick up the phone and call the licensing board in Puerto Rico and expect to get an answer immediately. We understand that the Florida Board of Nursing has already made contact with the licensing board and are able to communicate via email very quickly, where they are providing the information on licensure status, and the board itself will also staff will attempt to verify directly with the Puerto Rican regulatory officials to get that cleared. And then we have the written verification of current employment on official agency letterhead. Another, we believe there was a hindrance, but it says now with the expedited, if unable to obtain verification due to the circumstances in Puerto Rico, the applicant may submit documentation to demonstrate work for 3 of the past 3 years by alternative means, and they're being pretty broad on that, which can be maybe pay stubs and other ways of doing that. And then if licensed via this expedited road, applicant must complete a Florida laws and rules course approved by the board within 6 months. So it's not immediate. They have 6 months to take this. And under Florida statute 464022, if the RN or LPN is already licensed to Puerto Rico, they have up to 60 days, a period of 60 days, to provide to the employer the satisfactory information. The employer can hire him for up to 60 days without having their license approved by the Board of Nursing, as long as there's a path. So not only did the Board of Nursing do that, but we also went to the Florida Board of Medicine. And through the Board of Medicine, Osteopathic Medicine has also provided through their website this similar expedited process, and including they've had the opportunities of designated to be as the area of critical need medical doctor or limited licensed medical doctor. There's a procedure for that too. So again, we're excited about telling you about this because we continue to push to make sure that folks that are coming from Puerto Rico have the opportunities to work. These are professionals that have gone through college, that have their licensure in Puerto Rico that has been interrupted by the hurricane, and the fact that they can continue working in Florida and hopefully achieve the American dream and continue what they've been doing in Puerto Rico over here is not only going to help Florida, but it helps them cope through this process. And then if one day they all want to go back home because home, which is Puerto Rico, has been rebuilt, then at least they have additional experience. They just didn't sit around for things to work. And I want to encourage any of the other colleagues for any other comments.
I just want to say that I don't want it to be misinterpreted that the Puerto Ricans come here to get a handout. They just want a hand up, and there's a lot of professionals. Just like he stated, they're not here to stay. Some of them want to go right back as soon as the island gets back together.
Actually, I will mention something. You know, in touching on what Representative John Cortes just said, we've been seeing a shortage here in our state, not just in physicians, but also in nursing. And so having the ability to bring in experienced nurses from all different fields and filling some of the vacancies we have in our state is a win for our state as well. So that's that's another way we can look at it.
And again, Representative Cortes mentioned it very much so. So many questions that we've been asked at the DRCs and a lot of folks says, how can we help the folks from Puerto Rico coming here? And it's just that. They don't want handouts. They want to be able to the opportunity to work. And we're giving them that opportunity by taking away some of the hindrances, taking away some of the red tape that is involved on stuff, especially when there's their profession. Now, I tell you this. I'm not stopping here. It's a win, but I'm still not satisfied. We have other professions that we have to continue to make sure that those that are licensed in other places can come to Florida to work. And frankly, if we get that done, then Florida economy is going to grow because now we have people working that are going to contribute to our economy. And with that said, I appreciate it. I appreciate all the agency heads that have been involved here. I want to thank the governor and his staff for being up front and listening to all the things that we've saying. It's important that we get ahead of this, and so far we have been doing just that. With that, I'll open up for any questions.
Representative, with all the expected influx of people coming through, and even if they do get jobs, are they going to have a place to stay? Obviously, people have families with their own. If they stay for, even if they go back and later, if they stay for any length of time, they're going to want their own place. Have you made any consideration about affordable housing and need for that in the budget, and perhaps this year, and where is that?
Thank you. I'm glad you asked that. Yes. I have been in communication with the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. I am actually looking into some legislation to be introduced soon. I'm looking for language right now to kickstart some affordable housing because not only is it because the folks at Puerto Rico that had come here are going to be looking for some, but we already had a shortage. And not just affordable housing, we have a shortage in market value housing, particularly in Central Florida and places like Miami-Dade. So yes, absolutely want to find, kickstart some more building. And, you know, like the old Field of Dreams saying, if you build them, they will come. Well, they're here. We need to build them, so they're here, and the need is going to create more building boom. We want to make sure that we provide the environment for that.
Yeah, I apologize. I just wanted to talk about the housing for just 1 second, and I think it's important what Representative Cortes is doing with housing, and the possibility of this legislation will have a profound difference in our already existing affordable housing crisis that we have in some of our cities around our state, and now exacerbated even more by the amount of evacuees that are coming from Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. The biggest concern I have is the immediacy of housing that we're seeing in our Central Florida area. And in dealing with a lot of the evacuees that I've been dealing with on a daily basis, either through my office, through the Family Response Center in Orlando, or through the receiving centers, the one at OIA, is a lot of families are moving in with other family members. But if they're in apartments and rentals, then there's there's a law that limits the amount of people that can be the occupancy for a dwelling. And some people are being threatened with eviction. Some have already been evicted, and some families have not been able to stay with their family members because of the threat of eviction. Another thing we're seeing as well is the honeymoon period is over at some point. So we'll have families who are staying with aunts, uncles, cousins, distant relatives or friends, but then after 3, 4, 5 weeks, they feel like it's time for them to move on and try to find their own place. And we're seeing more and more people coming into the center asking for housing. I had a woman call me yesterday. I met her at Nemours Hospital where she was with her child. She was asked to come here in Puerto Rico because her child was diagnosed with an illness, and they couldn't serve that child in Puerto Rico. So she came here. She's living with her cousin, called me yesterday and said, my cousin told me I can't be here after 3 days from now. Do you have a place I can go? And right now it's very difficult to get an answer on where we can send people. So my biggest immediate, what I see as the biggest immediate need is immediate housing in our most trafficked area like Osceola, Orange County, and Seminole County as well.
What's the response been from when you talk to FEMA?
So with FEMA, because the TSA hasn't been activated by the Puerto Rican government, FEMA can't reimburse the state or the counties at this moment. So there's very little that FEMA can do. The conversation right now is being had between within the counties themselves and the counties with the state. And right now it's just at the level of conversation. I know that Orange County has created a task force. If you're asking me, which you are, we're too late for task force. We need to act now. This isn't the time to be having meetings or conversations. We need to have a plan set in place, because we don't know when there will be 25, 30, 45, 100 families either displaced because they can no longer be living with family members, or that are coming here with no family or friends in Central Florida that they can live with, and all of a sudden we might have a situation where we have 25, 30, 45 families who really have nowhere to go. Our hotels and lodging association has been more than gracious with providing short-term stays at a very reduced price, if not for free, to a lot of our families. But we're reaching peak season right now for our hotel stays, and they are they will predominantly be at 100% capacity, and they're not going to be able to serve the volume of evacuees that we potentially could be getting, not just from the ones that are coming over, but the ones that are already here and will be having to leave friends and families' homes.
Thank you. And in addition, remember that the governor did sign the whole state agreement with the federal government that provides funding for shelters, which the counties are aware of, and then part of the communication and discussions have been that if the need arises, the immediate need would be to open shelters and then move on to there if whatever needs arise from there. So,
yes. My question is about the fact that something we've discussed. As you know, Florida is a real ID state.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone who wants to get a permanent driver's license citizenship, because folks are coming here and they've been displaced and maybe they've lost all their documents. Mm-hmm. Are you aware of any difficulty that Puerto Ricans are having getting these licenses because of the real ID requirements?
Right. We have heard of some of the issues that have come that they're dealing with at the DRCs, and they're doing a phenomenal job over there by not turning anybody away. They're actually issuing a temporary driver's license for up to 180 days for those that don't have all the documentation. And what documentation we're talking about? they first ask for a passport or birth certificate. That's the first thing that's asked at the DRC if they have, and I've witnessed this firsthand. And if they say yes, then they can continue on the process on the other documentation. If they say no, then right then it says, well, you can drive with your Puerto Rico license here in Florida indefinitely. If you wish to have a Florida license, we can only issue a temporary 180-day until you can provide, and they'll give them a list of items they need to get. Any other questions?
I wanted to touch on the fee waiver, the delay, and the idea is delay the licensing fees for 30 days so they can earn some money. Is that the issue?
Yeah, that's correct. Remember, a lot of these folks have come from Puerto Rico displaced, and I don't know if you understand that part of the issue is, and when we were in Puerto Rico, there's no credit cards, there's nothing's working. It's all cash. But in order to even get cash, you have to stand in the line for hours at a bank just to retrieve cash from a bank. So most of the folks are not even going to go through that process. They're going to come here with whatever they have in their pocket and the suitcases that they have. And then, sure, they'll establish here and they'll go to a friend's house or cousin's house. And, you know, they have limited resources, limited cash. Remember, they have not been able to work for over a month now, maybe even more than that. So their resources and their cash on hand has been dwindled. So this is a way to just trying to help them forward. And DBPR already issued similar ones, so we have already a precedent with that.
I just had a general question about the whole situation. I mean, I think Representative Plasencia mentioned earlier about the honeymoon effect being can expire even with people's own families coming. We are having a budget situation where it looks like we're going to have to make some cuts, not only for Hurricane Irma, but for the impacts of Maria. Are you concerned at all that the honeymoon effect for just the average citizen will expire pretty quickly once they see if we do have to make some drastic cuts in things like education and healthcare and stuff that impact them to accommodate people coming in?
If you realize that 6 months ago, when we were even the budget estimating conference that was held in September, none of this was even on the forefront. So this is all new, and I'm sure that all the numbers are going to be looked at in a way of what is the impact that these storms, not just Maria, Irma, and all the other ones, even Harvey, are going to have to the state of Florida and our budget. It's no secret that it's definitely going to have an impact. At that time, we're going to seek with the different committees to see what is it that we need to do, how much money we will have available for the final budget, and that's something that I'm sure the staffs are looking into right now. But, again, I'll give you another example. The licensing fees, the driver's license, they're charging $48 for a license. That wasn't in the budget. That wasn't in the budget as a revenue source for us when we passed the budget last year. And that is going to be an additional revenue right now unless the governor does waive it. So, all these things are going to either go up or down on our budget, which we have to look and see what we're going to do next year.
I think the point of your question was whether or not there's going to be a maybe a negative effect on our overall population because the strain of our budget, busier roads, and all the things that are associated with an influx of people. And what I would say is I don't think that will happen. And I think history has shown that doesn't happen. If you just take a look most recently at Katrina and how many evacuees from New Orleans moved into the Houston area. And the majority of them did not move back to Louisiana. They stayed in Houston, and the city of Houston embraced them, made them their own. Now they're called Houstonians like everyone else from Houston, and you'll see the same thing in Orlando. We already have a robust Puerto Rican community, and not just Puerto Rican. We have Colombian and Mexican and Dominican and Cuban. We have a very diverse community in Central Florida through all our counties, and it's a very welcoming county, and we're a very welcoming state, and we're welcoming them as well as our displaced evacuees from the Virgin Islands with open arms.
So no backlash?
I wouldn't anticipate any.
Well, and one more thing that you got to add, that Florida's structure on the state budget relies on fees like driver's license fees, relies on sales tax. So you have folks that came here with nothing that theoretically, once they start working, which is why this is important, they're going to start buying clothes for their children. They'll buy cars. They'll pay registration fees. And these are things that we were not counting in the estimating budget, that all of a sudden 60,000, 100,000, potentially 150,000 are going to be part of this economy and growing. And we want them to grow just like anybody else in this state.
And I think also something, an incident like this is also shedding light on other issues that we have already had in our communities. And you're seeing legislation much like what Representative Cortes will be filing for affordable housing. You're seeing because of this event that's happening in the mass evacuation of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, it's shedding a light on issues that are already existing in our community, and now we're coming up with solutions for these broader issues.
Is there going to, I'm looking over the horizon, is there going to come a point at which there might be a legitimate difference of opinion, say, between community leaders and the state about keeping the disaster recovery centers open? What's the answer to that?
And, you know, originally the Disaster Relief Center was scheduled to open for only a month, I believe November 4th or some. And as long as we see the need and we continue to see the numbers there, I believe there will be a need to keep it open. So that would be a decision for the Division of Emergency Management and the secretary there, and of course the governor. If there's a need, we're going to definitely ask for the need. Even beyond when the DRC from the airport does close down, I think there's still going to be a need for local offices to continue some sort of informational purposes, whether it's through the state or it's handled like entities like Representative Plasencia is involved in the Family Resource Center.
Yeah, let me address that real quick. You know, I think right now the counties have been very cooperative with whatever the governor has asked for, and the governor has done an amazing job. The DRCs are scaling back over the next couple of weeks, and they're going to have a smaller footprint on the overall, at least at OIA, on the overall, you know, what they're doing at the DRC over there at OIA. So you're already seeing a scaling back, but you do have grassroots organizations, much like the one that I've been working with, the Puerto Rican Family Response Center, who, as the DRC scales back, they only broaden their level of influence and how many evacuees that they're working with. So, you know, oftentimes it's incumbent upon us as a government to act, but then at some point the private sector or the nonprofit sector then is best equipped with being able to handle a lot of these humanitarian situations more so than we are.
Any other questions? Well, I thank you for your time. I want to just, again, reiterate, I thank these gentlemen and all the folks that, the legislators that stood up early on to help the folks in Puerto Rico and other places that have been displaced. Our staff here, the Speaker, and the President of the Senate, who's been very supportive, and of course the Governor and his staff, who have been just phenomenal in this time of need. And we will continue working and pushing issues like this forward, because I think it's important that at the end of the day there'll be light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll all be able to see the rainbow. And at the end of the day, some of these folks want to return back home. Once their home becomes normal, we welcome that too. Thank you.